to walk through a short demo of how you can log into this applicant pool system and review your applications and update statuses, and if you wish, put in notes regarding the applicant. And then as a second part of this, I'm going to walk through the application process itself as if I'm an applicant so that you can get a sense of the process for your applicants. So when you are given a login by your site administrator, then you can log in. And this is, by the way, the system where all of your applicants will be able to come regardless of where they have been sourced from. Many of them are going to be coming from a site called Indeed.com, the largest job site in the U.S. by a pretty good stretch. Others may be coming from your site or other places. So when you first log in, you're going to be accessing a screen which generally will have just the job listings that you have some interest in for your department or division, whatever the business unit you work in within your company. So when you land on the page, first thing you're going to see is some analytics around the number of visitors. I'm going to bump this out actually to a bigger range of dates just so I can have data that looks a little bit more realistic. So this is a demo site, so it's not exactly what you would see. More typically what you'll see is the number of people who view a given job listing, particularly if you've got a complete application that has prior employers, references, education, and the works. You'll see about 10 times the number of people who view a job listing as the people who complete the application. And so that's kind of typical just across industry. If you've got a shorter application, it may be a little bit smaller ratio, but don't be surprised if you see a 10-to-1 ratio. And a significantly larger number of people who start an application but maybe don't have their heart really into it and therefore don't complete the application. So if you see 10-to-1, that's about normal. And then if there are screening questions set up, then you may have people who do not meet the basic qualifications for the job listing, and therefore there'll be a smaller number who meet basic qualifications than there were who completed the application. And then ultimately you're going to have a number that's those people that, or those applicants that do not yet have a status. So particularly if you've got an affirmative action plan in your company or an imperative to report on all of your applicants, then this is basically your workload. So if you've got multiple jobs, if you have multiple jobs in your department or over different departments or business units, then you may have a number of lines of data here, and the total number is the total number of applicants that don't yet have a status. So with that, then you've dropped into the applicants page, so let's go and take a look at the applicants. You can click on the job title or the magnifying glass, and when you open, you're going to see all of your most recent applicants for this job listing. And so similar to what we did on the last page, if you want to look at all of your applicants, you can refresh that. You could look at any archived applicants. You can look at not just the ones that met the basic qualifications, but all of them if you want. And one more thing you can do is you can include the job screening questions. So for this job listing, we had a few. I'm going to look at just the first couple. So if I want to have a bit more information about these applicants without having to go into each application, then I can refresh my screen. And here are the responses to those applicants. There can be some codes that pop up behind the name. So this one was manually added. I think I've got some others down at the bottom. So notes, for instance. So I can see the notes that have been put in and who put those notes in. And then there are some functions that you can utilize down here. So I've seen information about, and this is if you've got screening questions related to each of your job listings, then you can see the responses to how many years of experience or whether they meet a particular criteria, for instance. You can come in and you can update a person's status by clicking the drop-down and choosing the status. You can select all or a subset of your applicants, and you can choose which ones you want to look at or deselect, and you could actually update the status of all of them at once. And this will be a list of the statuses set up for your company. You could, at that point, and this all, of course, needs to fit within the process of your company for hiring, but you may be able to send out a thanks but no thanks email, for instance, or if it makes sense, and you may not be the one who is typically charged with archiving applications, but if you've reviewed the applications and there's nothing left to do, they've been given a status, they've been emailed a thanks but no thanks email or other, and then you want to archive them, then you can also choose to archive your applicants, all from this one page. So it makes it a nice, straightforward process for dealing with a lot of applications at once. I'm trying to get up to the top of the screen. Here we go. So I'm going to go in. I don't know if you ever watch Cheers, but Cliff Clavin is apparently applying for a job here. So I'm going to go in and take a look at that application. So I'm going to click on the magnifying glass. This red arrow, by the way, is how you can archive an individual application. So you don't want to click that unless you've already put in a status, for instance. So if I click on the magnifying glass, then here's the application for Cliff Clavin. If I wanted to go in and look at other applications, I can just click and review one application after another. So it can make it a very efficient process. I can see who has come in here, including me, most recently, actually right now. And I can see anyone else who's come in. So you need to know that if you're going in and viewing applications, it's being noted that you're viewing that application, and that should be okay. You have multiple options here. You can look at all the information on the application, different parts of it. You can review the information that was put in, the screening questions. And if you want to update status, you can do that here. If I wanted to add a note, then I can click on and have that, by the way, tied to a change of status. Then I could go in and I could note that this was just a test app. And so I could put that they did not meet minimum qualifications. Click on Add Note. All right, so I've got another note here that's tied to the change in status. There are some other options that you have available. So underneath Actions, if you did want to forward this to someone else, it's not going to be the application in the body of the email, but if you're attempting to forward this to someone who's set up to receive these in the system, then forwarding the application will allow you to choose a person whose name and email address at least are already in the system. You could also spotlight this, so if this is an application that you think someone else ought to look at, then you could choose to spotlight it and choose one of the other managers in your company, for instance, and then you could move it over and you could give them a note as well, and you can then forward this on to them to say, hey, you may want to take a look at this application. All right, but the main things you're looking to do really are to go through, review your applications, note who you want to take next steps with, and then choose a status that reflects that. So if the next step is to mark them as not meeting qualifications, great. If it's to set them up for an interview or forward them to some other hiring manager or ultimately to hire them, then that's the capability you have. So you want this to fit within the hiring process of your organization. You can email directly from the application. So if you click on this, then you can send a message. You can choose one of the email templates if you want, or just create an email from scratch. That's basically it as far as looking at an application. You do have some other options, however. So if we, instead of clicking on this first link at the top, applicants, if instead we actually, let me look at one more thing there, sorry. So actually, no, take it back. I'm going to go to jobs, and here you've got a couple of things you can do. One is that you've got a couple of reports. So I have just the one job listing. If there were more, then this same option would be available for each of them. But you do have a couple of reports. So if you wanted to see what status do you have for each of the applicants, then you can see that. You can see how many are active versus how many are archived, how many total applications. So it's kind of a overlay of where all of your applicants are in the hiring process. Or if you wanted to see where did all these applicants come from, get a sense of where your biggest amount of traffic is coming from. So we've had a ton of people coming in from Indeed. Simply Hired, you're not going to have nearly as many. Usually, depends upon the type of company you have, but it will be far less than Indeed usually. But this gives you a sense of where your applicants are coming from. And then ultimately, let's say that you've got multiple jobs that are open and you want to look at the applicants from all of your jobs at once. You can click on All Applicants. And it doesn't matter which job that they came from. You can look at all of them, or you can choose which ones you want to look at. And you've got some other filters as well. So that's the process. There's really not too much to it. When you log in, you can go to whichever job you wish. You can view the applications. You can update their status or take other actions with them. And then underneath jobs, you've got the ability to look at some reporting. So what I'm going to do now is go to what your applicants will see. So this is based upon the look and feel of our corporate site. Yours is going to look like your corporate site, and almost always your careers or job opportunities linked from your corporate site will link to a page similar to this so that you can see all of your open job listings. From there, a potential applicant can go to the place that they would land if they came in from Indeed or Career Builder or wherever, some other site. They can see this. This is, by the way, mobile optimized, and so we're looking at it on a computer, and therefore I see both of the sides of this screen. If I was looking at it on a cell phone, then what I would see would be this first field, and all the rest of this information would be below. So an applicant can email the application to, the job listing to themselves, because they may not want to use their thumbs to apply. If they do have some options. They can click on a link, and if they've got a LinkedIn profile, then it will actually pre-populate for them their name and their email address. It's not a big deal, but it's a nice efficiency for them. So when they complete the information in the Apply Now section, then we're actually creating a login for them. And that includes their email address, and so the same applicant using this email address can only apply for a given job one time, so you're not going to have duplicate applications. As an applicant, they can also choose to log in, and so if they do, then they can return to an application that they may have started and not completed. And in fact, the system will prompt them to go back to an application if they've not completed it. They have all the different sections. The very first section typically is job-specific screening questions. So this is a way to get information and possibly mark them as disqualifiers. So if you needed your applicants to have a high school diploma and you're not going to consider those that don't have it, then if they mark no, then they'll not meet the basic qualifications of this job listing. So these are going to be specific to each individual job. I'll note just a couple of other things. When it comes to resumes, even if they're on cell phones, they have the ability to upload from Dropbox or Google Drive. So with iPhones, for instance, it's almost impossible to upload a resume on your phone, but they can also put in a resume into the text field, and then they can create a file from there. So they do have those options. They can see all of the sections that they've completed, and then ultimately they can submit their application, and that's all there is to the process. They can, by the way, go back in and they can print out their application. If they started an application that they didn't complete, then they can go in and complete the application as well. So that's all I was going to cover today. If you have any questions, then you might first ask your administrator for your site, but I'm also available, or the support group, if you have any other questions. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.